Hello, welcome back to Farzan's Gaming. My name is Ben, and today we're going to continue on with Suzerain. The last time we left off, we set our healthcare initiatives. We managed to get the opposition on board with our constitution reforms, and we had a rather disappointing talk with our Minister of Education. So today we're actually going to back to Holsword and continue a conversation with Ciara. A briefing on the current curriculum in schools. Ciara had scheduled a short meeting at the Ministry of Education to discuss the current curriculum taught in schools. The Ministry building was located in the government district right next to the Ministry of Health. It was tall, narrow, and wedge-shaped, like a slightly open book. Near the front gate, there were many statues of world-renowned scientists and thinkers. The largest, of course, was of Artfin Einstein, the greatest scientist of all time. Nice. Above the main entrance was the familiar inscription, Instraten sis agnicar av geraina ins ola almerk voltena ins ola mexis. Sure. Education is the premise of progress in all societies, in all families. Inside the building, I was greeted by Ciara's assistants. They led me to a meeting room where she was waiting inside. She stood and gripped my hand. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Ciara. I will cut straight to the chase. The lack of governmental resources have halted our plans for education reform, but there's one important change that can still be made. It involves evolution versus creationism. As it currently stands, schools across Southern can decide whether to include evolution, creationism, or both in their curriculum. Well, that's fucking stupid. Rural schools often decide in favor of creationism only, which puts students at a disadvantage when it comes to entering university. The effect is especially noticeable among young women. My suggestion is to make teaching of evolution mandatory, preferably ban creationism altogether. Yeah, no shit. I don't agree with teaching our children supernatural nonsense like creationism. Oh, that's great to hear. It sounds like we're already aligned on the matter. Lucy and Galad knocked and entered.
Excuse me, some urgent business kept me away.
Welcome, Mr. Galad.
Mr. President, Miss Walda.
We were just discussing the curriculum. Ciara's made some excellent points.
Very well, let's hear them.
Continue on from my previous point. It is my conviction that we should require the mandatory teaching of evolution in Swordens public schools and cut creationism completely out. We want children from rural areas to have the same opportunities as urban counterparts. This is the way. Opening students' minds and reducing the role of religion in schools also leads to more equality between young men and women.
Don't bring your pet cause into this, Miss Walda. You failed your reforms, now you want to remove belief from schools?
Advancing women's rights is more than just a pet cause. Both of you gentlemen must know that. Also, we all know why the education reforms failed, don't we?
Ciara looked at me.
Oopsie doodle.
Education budget didn't make the cut. Nothing can be done about it.
Action and consequence, I told you before.
Going back to the topic. Although I myself believe in evolution, we must be careful not to alienate a rural conservative voter base. We owe a lot to their support. Forcing their school districts to teach evolution could irreparably damage our standing with them.
To learn real fucking science. The modern nation is reducing or removing creationism in their curriculum, yet we're supposed to allow schools to promote fundamental and, yes, sexist ideas from 1,000 years back?
So is that what we're doing now? Copying what other nations are doing instead of paving our own way?
If it works, why not? Look at the analysis. It's clear that superpowers are doing something right. Should we reinvent the wheel, Mr. Galad? You speak as if we don't import any influences from other countries.
That's not what I said.
Her voice started to get louder and louder. I held up my hands for silence. Evolution is the way forward. Creationism has no place in the public school curriculum. Thank you. As I said, it's the only way to produce a new generation of thinkers.
There are other methods of bringing Soldan forward, ones that don't sever our ties to an entire voter base.
Ciara looked me in the eye. It's your decision. Don't forget, future generations of Swordist youth are counting on you. I'll make the teaching of evolution mandatory, but schools may promote creationism alongside it if they wish.
Unfortunate, but it will be a better outcome than banning creationism altogether.
Rejecting creationism would have been a signal that we were redirecting Sutherland toward a scientifically and technologically advanced future. They turned and looked at each other. Lucian lifted his eyebrow, and Sierra held his gaze for a couple seconds. The meeting ended shortly after. I don't know. I feel like that was probably the wrong choice. Should have just gotten rid of it altogether, but then again, we are trying to promote freedom and whatnot, so people should be allowed to think whatever nonsense they want. Alright. So, let's go ahead and take a look at the news here. Looks like we've got a bunch of stuff going on. 7 whole papers here. Cool, alright. So, from Whole Sword News, we got 4 papers, or 4 articles, I should say. Nationalize the Big Four now. As the debate about privatization versus nationalism intensifies in the capital, the Whole Sword Post firmly believes that President Rain should come down on the side of nationalism for all of the so-called Big Four companies, including the currently fully private Heart of Sordland and Burgess Steel. Full nationalization would prevent price gouging, prevent CEOs like Marcel Caranti from consolidating power, but even the government taking minority ownership of both companies would go a long way towards ensuring they act according to state interests. That sounds kind of messed up, but okay. Overblown rights case appealed. Okay, so this is definitely a nationalist paper then. I'm not sure I really noticed that before. Today, the politically motivated and controversial court case by Ishval Ersin has made its way to the Supreme Court to be reviewed. The mayor of Deir, Felix Braun, has dismissed the presence of systemic racism in the region of Berja and accusations against law enforcement, citing that the Bludish are being influenced by the Bludish Freedom Front, who wishes to radicalize the people for their dark aims. All eyes are now on Chief Justice Hawker in the Supreme Court to determine if the case has legal grounds or not. Many justices have already come forward to dispute the claim that the Constitution is not being upheld by the state of Sordland when it comes to the treatment of the Bludish people. Alright, Kassar raises the Bludish question. Yesterday in the Grand National Assembly, NFP leader Kassaro Keebner proposed a law that would make Sordish the only language accepted in educational institutions, boldly standing up for Sordish culture and tradition. This law, the Unified Education Language Act, is squarely aimed at the Bludish community, whose integration in Sordish society has long posed a problem. Educating children solely in the official language of this country will help cement their Sordish identity and quash the threat of Bludish independence in Sordland, said Keebner in a speech to the Assembly. What a racist douchebag. Alright, Dyer prepares for Day of Dissension. Okay. The city of Dyer is busy preparing for the Day of Dissension, the annual celebration of the founding of Nurdi. Though religion plays a smaller role in Sordish daily life than in years past, the day still holds special importance for many Nurists, thousands of whom have already begun undertaking the pilgrimage to the tomb of Saint Dast. The cathedral in which it is located, Dyer's Arch Sanctuary, is currently undergoing renovations set to be completed in time for the festivities. In accordance with presidential tradition, Anton Rain will be making an appearance at the event. Do I have to? Alright. Sordland today. Privatization, the future of Sordland. Don't let the pro-government elites fool you. Nationalization of Sordland's Big Four corporations would be a disaster for our country. Instead, we advocate for the privatization of state-owned enterprises, Neta Mining and the Sordish State Corporation. Both companies have grown sluggish from lack of competition. Even private interests taking a minority stake could lead to greater innovation and a brighter future. Creationism or evolution? Rain says both. Under pressure to catch up with the education systems of Markasia and United Cantana, President Rain decided to enforce teaching of evolution in public schools. We can expect to see some pushback against this decision, especially in Sordland's rural areas where creationism is long the default. President Rain did specify that the teaching of creationism will still be allowed, but this may not be enough to mollify religious conservatives, and it will only anger left-wingers who are gunning for creationism to be banned. Yeah, like I said, I think I should have just gotten rid of it outright, but oh well, a little late now. Alright, and last one here from the Radical. Rain's curriculum compromise forces schools to evolve slightly. President Rain, perhaps swayed by the valid arguments of Education Minister C.R. Walda, made the decision to make evolution a mandatory part of the public school curriculum. This switch is a huge step forward for Swordland's rural youth, who have long been at an educational disadvantage compared to their urban counterparts. However, in a concession to backwards thinking conservatives, schools will still be allowed to teach creationism alongside evolution. We can only hope students choose to listen to science and ignore the religious propaganda. Yeah, that was probably a mistake, but oh well. Alright, see what's going on down here in Volgan. Economic report. Volgan is suffering the effects of the economic recession, with unemployment spiking and many small businesses shuttering. The larger agricultural concerns are expected to announce a wave of layoffs as sales slow. That's not good. Right. Agnolia trade deal update. The effects of the trade deal with Agnolia is now in effect as per the signed agreement. In a short amount of time, steel trade in Swordland has seen an increase in flow, with especially the Island region benefiting the most from the results. The governor of Island has reported that this trade deal has helped increase the manufacturing output of the region immensely due to the combined effects of the H3 highway passing through the region. Fantastic. Alright, where are we going here? Yep, back to Valen. This probably isn't good. Valen operations a mixed success. Valen President Viktor Smolak is drawing his operations against the Bluish Freedom Front to a close. Consensus is that while Valen's army went a long way towards neutralizing the Bluish threat, there are many preventable casualties. Furthermore, despite Valen's best efforts, not all hideouts have been eradicated, and anti-Smolak sentiment is at an all-time high among the remaining insurgents. Yeah, that's probably going to be a problem going forward since I decided to make a deal with the devil down there, but deal with that when it comes. Alright, let's see. Anti-corruption police investigation updates. The anti-corruption police have completed preliminary investigations into suspected members of the Old Guard, including Orzo Hawker, Heron Garachi, Lilius Groff, and Falcon Kruger. No concrete proof of corruption or other wrongdoings has yet been revealed. I would hope not. I mean, if they're competent, they'd be covering all that stuff up pretty well. Okay. Language bill prepared by Casaro. Casaro Keebner is preparing a bill which aims to unify Swordish education by making Swordish the only language accepted in educational institutions, excluding specific foreign language studies. That's some racist nonsense, so I'll definitely veto that if I can. Alright. And let's go lobby the assembly to try to sway some votes here. Okay, Chief Strategist Lucien Glad has prepared a well-planned lobbying effort in the Parliament, which would specifically sway on the fence MPs for the upcoming Constitution vote. The plan includes lobbyist parties, gifts, even some political favors. Should we go ahead with the plan? You know what? I've reinvested my money a few times. Some of, what's his name? Gus's plans, so hopefully I'll be able to make some of that back, so screw it. Let's go and spend all our money to go for some substantial political favors, because we kind of need this reform to go through. I have a feeling our presidency's already on rocky footing. Yeah, okay. So let's hit the country overview, and then we'll continue on to the next churn. So, economy. Over here in the orange, Island economy stabilizing. The island region is stabilizing its economy thanks to the investments we've made. However, it's still struggling as the economy is not doing so well. But as long as it's on the up and up, that's positive. Fair, just evolutionary education with creationism. Yeah. Still think that was a mistake, but that's okay. Let's continue on here. Chapter 3, Victim of Changes. Oh, we got a couple of news reports here, so let's go back to those again. Starting off with a radical. World ignores the Blutish plight. Barred from high-paying jobs, discouraged from attending university, spat on in the streets. Where's the outrage against Sordlin's relentless oppression of the Bloods? For decades, Blutish swords have been treated as lesser beings, with the law still allowing rampant discrimination from businesses and educational institutions. We call on the international community to raise awareness of this tragedy so that we can begin promoting equality among all Sordish citizens. I won't argue that too much. Alright, Geopolitico. Volgish man shot after burning Agnolian flag. Nice, okay, so that conflict is just escalating fast here. The Helluland protests that started against the governor who was appointed by the Agnolian government are continuing without slowing down. After the supportive statements by Chancellor Emmerich Hegel, the Volgish protesters assembled in front of the governor's office in Helioport and waved Volkslandian flags. One Volgish protester was photographed as he climbed the flagpole of the governor's office and brought down the Agnolian flag. He was shot by Agnolian authorities on the island when he attempted to burn the flag with gasoline. Protesters claim he was shot in the neck and was killed immediately on the scene, while the Agnolian government has not released any statement about the subject. The incident sparked further unrest, and protests turned into riots around the island. Many Volgish protesters are now calling for Volksland to save them. Chancellor Hegel is quick to respond to the incident, saying Volksland stands together with their people in Helluland. No regime can murder its citizens because they protested. If this conflict continues, Volksland holds the right to intervene to save her people. Well, I won't argue you shouldn't be murdered for protesting. But, at the same time, we kind of sided with Agnolia, so... no. It's a development we'll definitely have to keep an eye on. Awesome. Alright. So, looks like we're getting a call from Marcel Caronti. I was in my office looking through the agenda for the upcoming meeting at the Ministry of Economy. The meeting was going to be about the ownership of the Big Four, the four largest companies in Sordland: Heart of Sordland, Burgess Steel, the Sordish State Corporation, and Nedham Mining Group. Some of these companies were controlled in part or entirely by the state. The others were mostly or completely privatized. I had the power to change that. The phone rang and I put the agenda down. I picked up the phone. Greetings, Mr. President. I'm sorry to disturb you before such an important meeting, but I thought now would be a good time to talk about our arrangements. I'm sure you'll agree that the support I and my network have given your administration has been nothing but beneficial. Half of the non-state media in the country have been sharing positive news about you and downplaying negative events. I'm just gonna agree. Our partnership has been successful so far. I'm glad you agree. Your public opinion could have nosedived were it not for us. I heard him knock on wood. On another note, I can't help but mention the tax breaks, Mr. President. They have been extraordinarily beneficial to our quarterly performance. HOS is now operating on a much larger revenue pool. You have successfully strengthened the backbone of the Sordish economy. Needless to say, I still expect you to reinvest any surplus back into the economy to create more jobs. Increasing our investments inside Sordland is a key topic in board discussions. He paused for a few seconds. Out of goodwill, I'll share a key piece of information. The Lotharberg Group has contingency plans if you decide to do anything rash that will disrupt their empires. You can't blame them, can you? Imagine someone trying to take your authority and personal wealth away without your consent. I don't see why we should be enemies. Exactly. If everyone plays their cards right, we'll be all fine. Now, let's talk about those cards. Since the start of your campaign, you've wisely committed to a market economy. Judging by that, I'm sure you're looking into privatizing some of the companies that are currently state-owned. I believe, therefore, that privatizing both Nedham Mining Group and the Sordish State Corporation would be in both of our interests. After all, I'm considering buying stocks in both companies. I mean, that is what I was thinking about, but this guy's kind of a douchebag. That's exactly what I was thinking. Excellent. Great minds do think alike. Thank you for your support. Before we end the call, there is actually one more thing I'd like to discuss. I will be blunt. Mr. Tusk is unfit to be the spokesperson for the Lothar Group. His archaic thinking has only preserved a status quo that benefits himself and precious few others. It is high time something changed. Would you have in mind to replace him? Who do you think? Me, of course. Here's what I propose, a win-win situation. If you promise me a majority of shares from the privatization, you would lose considerable power, which means I could take over. You may recall that one of the terms of our agreement was that I may ask you for one favor. Well, this is it. Do you accept? Yeah. Much as I don't want to, because it seems kind of corrupt, Tusk is definitely kind of a relic and a douchebag, so... You know what? Screw it. A deal's a deal. Brontes always keep their word, my father said. He would have liked you. I've taken up enough of your time for today. This has been a productive call. Thank you for your time, Mr. President. Thanks, Marcel. Talk to you later. After a couple minutes, I went back to reviewing the agenda. Alright. One more newspaper here from the Radical. Refugees suffer because of rain. As more and more Bloods and Vasics attempt to flee Valen, we're seeing the consequences of Anton Rain's inhumane border policy. Turned away from Swordland, families face homelessness, starvation, and persecution from Viktor Smolak's regime. Some head to Lesbia, where they are accepted, but must undergo the country's labyrinthian asylum process. Politicians are already complaining of a refugee crisis. Rain must act now before more lives are lost. Yeah, if there's something I can do about that, I will, but that was a tricky situation there. Okay, so, I guess we're gonna go meet with Lucy and Galad now. Oh yeah, about the economy thing. Lucian scheduled some time with me to discuss the potential political repercussions of the upcoming economy meeting. He arrived on time as usual and took a seat right across from me.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Lucian had dark circles below his eyes. The plethora of political developments must have been weighing even on a workaholic like him. You look a bit tired. Are you getting enough sleep?
I am trying to, sir.
No, don't push yourself too much.
I will try not to. I must say, you don't look much better.
I looked at myself in a small hand mirror. Similar circles were beneath my eyes as well. Well, you know.
I booked some of your time to pre-plan for today's meeting at the Ministry of Economy. We need to be cautious. Any grand plans about the economy also heavily influence our political stand. We will be changing our relationship with the Old Guard, the oligarchs, and the opposition. As you know, this meeting will give you the opportunity to alter the ownership of the Big Four, the largest corporations in all of Swordland. We can start the process of nationalization or privatization, or we can just keep the status quo. Again, I remind you that any change will tip an already fragile balance. I personally think we should stay out of this and keep things as they are. There's no need to make new political enemies at this stage in our term, but ultimately the decision is yours. What are you leaning towards? How should we move forward?
Yeah, I'm thinking we should privatize these companies.
I have to ask, why? What is your intention?
I think privatization will help bring the country out of recession.
That may certainly be true. Taking everything out of state hands may have dire repercussions in a country like ours. We need to tread carefully. One thing to remember is that since you've been transparent about promoting a market economy, privatization will not cost as much support.
Lucian took a note in his notebook.
I received a report from the Ministry of Economy that may impact your decision. Unfortunately, we have missed our government budget targets for the fourth quarter. The plan to change the ownership of important assets could help us generate much-needed resources to further improve economic development before the next election. It's just something to consider, as is our relationship with the oligarchs. We need to remember that they only care about their own profits. Unfortunately, we aren't on good terms with them. This situation has been obstructing some of our efforts with the economic recovery. However, if we implement a privatization plan, they would surely be delighted. Still, we need to make sure that we don't go overboard with it. If we do, we might lose our base both in the USP and among the people.
To save our country from recession, privatization is a must.
As I mentioned, we need to be careful. Some of my connections indicate that there seems to be a contest for leadership in the Lothar group. Looks like Marcel Caronti is making moves to become the key figure. Caronti probably wants his father's seat as the head of the group, and Tusk doesn't want to let go of it. It's a significant power struggle considering these are the heads of Soldan's two largest private corporations. If we over-privatize our state-owned companies, the Swordfish State Corporation and Nether Mining Group, it could result in the balance tipping to one side. They would fight over buying up shares and cause chaos. Since you've already made the decision to privatize, you need to be decisive in your follow-up actions. Did Marcel or Tusk contact you?
I did receive a call from Marcel.
What did he ask for?
Don't worry, I have it under control.
Mr. President, if you are not transparent with me, I can't help you to the best of my ability. Very well, sir. I won't push you further. At any rate, this internal conflict among the oligarchs puts us in an interesting position. Our relationship with Walter Tusk hasn't been good so far. Any move we make now has to be calculated and thought through.
Lucien looked at his watch.
Very well then, it's almost time. I'll inform Mr. Hull of your decision. He'll make the necessary preparations to formulate a plan. I must get back to work now. See you at the next meeting. Thank you for your time, sir.
Lucien got up from his chair and left the office. Nice, okay. I decided not to tell him about it, because just in case I'm doing something bad, I don't really want to get him involved in it. Alright. But, that seems like a good place to call it for today. Yeah, that way we can pick up right at the start of that economy meeting next time, make some big choices. So yeah, if you enjoyed that video, please like and subscribe, and as always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.